Welcome back to the 40th part in this Python series on the Django Web Framework. In this one I'm going to talk a bit about the Django ORM, or Object Relational Mapper. So in other words, how you sort of interface with the data that's stored in your Django project in your database backend, and how you can sort of customize that in what's called a model manager. So let's just go ahead and get started. So in the last one we looked at the sort of admin page and adding columns and filtering and doing this sort of stuff specifically within the admin, and for that we used a query set, so get query set method. We overrode the default one and then we sort of customized it using our own sort of order by addition. So we said order by the phone, so that's why it's ordered by the phone at the moment. But now what we can do is sort of generalize this a bit more, and instead of putting it in admin.py we can actually put it in models.py. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to define what's called a user profile manager. So I just got that name from the fact that this model is called user profile, and I like to stick to the convention, although you don't have to. Of course you can call the class what you want, but I like to call the class for the model manager the model name and then manager. So in this case user profile manager. So now that we've got that out of the way, I'm going to say class user profile manager, and it's going to inherit from models.manager. So that is the base class specifically for these kinds of classes to be able to create the manager. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to say pass for now, so that I can show you what a default manager looks like in Python and why we might even want this custom manager, because you may not want a custom manager to do, you know, the things that you want to do with it. So let's go and show you. I'm going to use the shell. So if you haven't seen the Django shell before, you can just type python manage.py shell, and then that's going to give you access to the Django shell, which is a bit different from your Python shell because you've got access to everything that's sort of defined within your Django project, and it knows that already. So all we've got to do is import it from our Django project root. So it already knows we're in the Django project, and I'm just going to say from accounts, so the name of the Django app dot models, so we're in the models file at the moment, so just models there. I'm going to import user profile, so that's the model that we're playing with. And what I can do is I can actually say user profile dot objects dot all. So if you might have seen this before looking at Django code online, or just playing around with it yourself, and what this does is it gets all the objects out of the database. Now this uses the default built-in manager for this particular model. So in this case it's the objects manager, and that's default, that's sort of inherited from models.model. But what we can do if we want to say customize this response, this is where the custom manager comes in. So let's say for example if you have a lot of data in your database stored in this user profile model, you only want to get the objects that have a city equal to London, so only the users that are in London basically. So what we could do if we want to do that once, we could just say user profile dot objects dot filter, and we could just say city is equal to London. So this is just utilizing the city character field that we've got defined in our model, and the fact that we have in our database an object with the city of London. So I'm going to press enter, and we get back that object, so you can see it corresponds with the test3 user account. So now that we can do that, that's great. So we've got the data we wanted. But let's say for example that you wanted to do that multiple times throughout your Django project, and every single time you've got to do that dot filter city equals London, and you're making sort of extra effort for yourself when you could just do it once with a manager. Like for example, you could still do the ordering like we did before, so you could say dot order by phone for example, which is what we did before specifically with the admin, and you could do that and it will get the same results. It may change the order. Of course we've only got one object, so it doesn't actually show you that it's changing the order, but that would be how you would change the order in this case. But if you wanted to do that a lot of the time throughout your Django project, a better way to do that is through a model manager. So you can either override the objects manager, or you can just define a separate one. So let's go and do that. So I'm going to say user profile manager, and all I'm going to say is we want to override the get query set method. So def get query set, and what I'm going to say is self. So unlike the admin specific one, we don't need to accept the request, and then we can just say return super. So remember, it's going back up the tree, utilizing that one with the get query set already, and then we're going to use its functionality and customize it, just like we did with the admin. So I'm going to say user profile manager and self dot get query set. So we're just calling that method again, get query set, like that, and then what we can do is we can just do, say for example, we could do dot filter. So we could do city equals London. So now we've got this defined, that is all we really need to do for our custom model manager. So now that we've done that, you might be wondering, well, how do we actually use that? So how do we use our custom model manager that we've got? Well, we have to associate it somehow with the model, because this is just a convention. It doesn't know actually that it's associated with user profile yet. We have to just tell it, because the name is arbitrary. It could be anything. It's just a good practice to call it that, because it's easier to read. So to associate it with the user profile model itself, what we can do is we can say, for example, London is equal to user profile manager. So what that's going to allow us to do is, just like we use dot objects here, we can use dot London instead, and it's going to use our custom manager. So what that looks like is we could say user profile dot London dot, and instead of doing dot filter like I did here, so we did dot filter city equals London to get the desired result, now all we need to do is dot all, and it's got an error, so no user profile has no attribute London. Oh yes, I always forget this. So to be able to actually show you that change, I need to exit this shell and I need to go back into it. So I'm going to, or I think you could just re-import actually, I didn't have to do that necessarily, but I'm just going to re-import it here. Accounts.models, I'm going to import user profile again, and then that should allow me to show that change. So I'm going to do user profile dot London, which is what we called our sort of manager, our reference to our manager, and I'm going to say dot all. So if you remember, we did dot filter city equals London to achieve what is actually the same result. So this is actually good, because it means you've only got to write the filter once, or the order by, or whatever you want to do. So you could do a dot filter, a dot order by, or you could do both, like we did here. So dot filter, dot order by. And we could do that instead of having to do it throughout our code base, so we can just put that in one place if we use that particular query quite a lot. In the next one, I think we're going to do something a little bit different, and we're going to start working on the home page.